Hey, everybody, welcome back to We've Got Issues. It is our regular conversation amongst a group of lifelong friends who are looking at the world and giving our take on the big picture topics that we hope will be resonant to you. My name is Nick Cates. I'm here in LA with three of my great friends who are kind of well informed about things, and I think you'll enjoy what they have to say as usual. I'm going to start today by introducing my man, Ron Evans, back in the DMV. What's up, Ron?
Hey man, how you guys doing?
All right. And then Darren Gray, Detroit's own.
Detroit, what up?
There he is. And of course, as always, Miss Ella Neely.
How's everybody? I'm in sunny Southern California.
Of course, repping the SoCal. And as a matter of fact, we have the distinct privilege of having Miss Ella, who's going to bring us her topic for today, which I'm sure will be something that we'll all resonate with. So Ella, why don't you take it away?
Greetings, everybody. Thank you, Nick, Ron, and Darren. So I just want to start by introducing myself. So I'm Ella, and I'm a female. And that's important because, you know, we live in a very patriotic and misogynistic society. I'm Black. And as a Black person, you know, we're at the lowest rung of the caste system. And I'm single, which means that I have to do everything on my own by myself. There's no partner to help me. And I'm also self-employed, which means that I have no security, that everything that I bring in the door, I have to go out, and as my esteemed friend Ron would say, I'd have to go out and I'd have to bring in what does he say? Go out, kill the prey, and bring it home.
Bring it home.
I get back to the cave.
Also, when I bring it home, I got to build the house. I got to pay for the house. I got to cook the food. I got to clean up the mess, and I got to nurture the babies. Ooh. And so this is my lens, and we all have different lenses. And I think it's important for you to understand who I am as a person. So when you hear what I have to say, you understand where it's coming from. And so one of the things that, you know, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to self-help, and I came across Jada Pinkett Smith and the Round Table and the Red Table Talk. They had a woman named Kelly McDaniels, and she was talking about mother hunger. And it was so very important. It was so very key because she talked about there's three essential things that mothers need to do for their children, and they are to provide nurturing, protection, and guidance. So Nick, would you kind of like roll my little clip that I have?
Absolutely.
What do you want to say about the mother wound and why it cuts so deep? This is a big one. It's a big one because our mother is our first relationship. I mean, it's the first voice you hear in the womb. And so your mother or the mother figure in your life gives you a sense of connection, value, and safety. And those
or
things not, right? They are the source of that. And whatever comes of that, we internalize as a truth. And so the wound cuts deep also because it is the mother-daughter. I see the woman that I should be or could be or might not ever be or was in them. And so it cuts very, very deep.
So this clip didn't necessarily talk about mother hunger. It was Black women, and I wanted to highlight that. But it kind of spoke to the bigger issue of mothering, as when you have a child, that the relationship, you know, you have this child in your womb for 9 months and they take on all of your energy. And depending on what was going on in the child's life or the mother's life at the time, the child, that becomes part of the child. And, you know, there's a lot of times when people say, oh, I have brothers and sisters, they're all very different because, and this has a lot to do with what was going on in the family at that time. And I think Ron spoke to this at some point, you know, when he was talking about his daughters. I mean, they're very different. It's different because I just think about my mom, and my mother at the time, she was 30 something. I was the second child. And when I was 2 or 3, her mother died. And so, and then she was a married woman. And so there's all kinds of different emotions that are going on. But what's important is that every woman, every child needs three core things: nurturing, protection, and guidance. And if they don't get those things, then they go out and seek it in other areas. They seek it elsewhere. And so the nurturing is the cuddling, the holding, the feeding, the talking to. And I know for me, I didn't have much nurturing because my mother wasn't she didn't do much hugging. And so, there was the nurturing as far as I got food, but I didn't have anybody to she wasn't that touchy feely kind of mother where she held me. And even to this day, I have issues with hugging and those types of things. And it's the protection to make sure that we're taken care of, that we have all the proper things that we need, that it could just be from food to the environment. And then as we get older, we need guidance. And so when we don't have those things, basically we have a wound. A wound creates, because those are essential elements that we all as humans need. And when I listen to all these people talk, most people kind of go back to their childhood. They say, oh, when I was little, I had this, or I didn't have this. And these wounds stay with us like all of our lives. And so what happens is, you kind of mask the wounds. You never really deal with the wounds. They're there, but you never really uncover or deal with what in this present state will take you beyond that wound. And so, it could be triggers. It could be all kind of triggers. Like you go out and you're successful and stuff, but somebody will do something that, reminds you of what happens when you were little, and it triggers you because you weren't taught to deal with your emotions. And so you become emotional, or you become angry and stuff. And so I just kind of wanted to put that out there, like how you men feel about these three things. Are they important, and are there anything of the nurturing, protection, and guidance? Are there any elements of those things that you're still working on?
Well, that is quite a mouthful, Ella. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. And I think, childhood trauma is not just a byword that, can be taken lightly. I think a lot of people deal with childhood in deficiencies or trauma or what have you in different ways. Could be from mothers, could be from fathers, could be, in a variety of ways. But to your point, Darren, like I know your upbringing, you might relate to that in your life story as well. So maybe you should start off and give your feedback.
Yeah. It's interesting because I've got three sisters, and my mom was in different phases with them. And you can see, based on how we relate, the sister that's closest in age to me, we're 17 months apart. So my mom was going through a lot of the same thing. Interesting is I sort of steered into the skid. I leaned into a lot of what my mom did in terms of, nurturing and guidance and protection. Whereas my sisters turned away from it. And so, my mom, in terms of nurturing, was really, I'll do the best that I can, but I got to make sure that we have a place to stay. And, in terms of protection, I shared with you, Nick and Ron off screen, how my mother had to defend us against someone who was trying to kill us by killing them. And so in terms of protection, that's sort of the way I am in terms of, looking out for safety and precaution. And then guidance, my mom has always been pretty straightforward with the truth. And I'm a lot the same way. Whereas my sisters, they went the total opposite in terms of how my mother raised them. And so it's just interesting that and maybe it's because, I'm XY and they're XXs, that my response to my mom's, the way of being is different than theirs. So just.
Yeah.
I mean, I think these absolutely still resonate when you think about, origin stories, we're all to some degree trying to outrun our childhood trauma. And for my wife and I think that, I think Stephen Covey said, no one is a complete loss because they can serve as a bad example to others. And there were things in our childhood that we saw, there were good examples, and there's some bad examples that we did not want to repeat. When I look at how she is raising our two daughters, or raised our two daughters, I guess we're trusted advisors, but I can't teach women or young girls how to be women.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And that was a hard one. I ain't gonna lie, Ella. It's like, wait, aren't we equal? Aren't I the husband, you're the wife? And it's like, at some point, yes, but a young lady can't teach a boy how to be a man. You can be a good mom, don't get me wrong, but there are some fundamental things where the same-sex parent just understands life, and sometimes the boy needs to get socked in the chest before they go outside and the world socks them in the chest.
Yes.
So when I look at what she's done with our daughters, I am so thankful, because she absolutely nurtures them. She protects them from both bad decisions, and also she protects them sometimes from me when I'm like emotional. It's like, okay, yes, your dad, he's going to calm down. He needs a minute. And guidance. She is walking the walk in the corporate world and has been a role model. Hopefully we both have, but we both are role models, but she is one showing our older daughter, who's in the corporate world, this is how you navigate. This is the hard work that's required to get ahead. And everybody wants what you want. So the only difference is you've got to be persistent and have grit. And she is now working most weeks 50 hours a week, and it's very hard for us. But by her actions, she's showing this is what it takes to be a strong woman, a strong Black woman in this world. And our daughters are seeing that, and hopefully they will be modeling the same behavior.
Yeah, I resonate with it from the standpoint that the mother nurturing, lands on men and women differently, right? I grew up in a 2-parent household, and I don't know what my life would have been if I did not have both the nurture of the mother and the discipline of the father, right? So, and I know that everybody, you could have 10 children grow up in a similar household and they take different directions and so forth. But one thing I do know is that as a man who has to at some point deal with women, having a positive model from a mother, right, is extremely important, right? I think in certain ways, and please don't tell my wife if she doesn't listen to this thing, because she doesn't like to hear me say it, but I call my wife mom, because in certain ways I married my mother, when I married my wife. And I mean that in the very best way possible, because all the best traits that my mother has, my wife has. And in certain ways, they could be in the same room and they're finishing each other's sentences and they're laughing at the same stuff and all that. And it puts me in the place where now I embody my father's, image, right? I play his role in the family, which in many ways is a good thing, because my father was basically the spirit guide. He was the one with whom this is where the buck stops, right? That kind of thing. So to your point, I think that for me, having a nurturing mom was incredibly important to my sense of like self-worth, right? Feeling like, oh, you're the most precious thing. But it wasn't only that. It was also my grandmothers and my great grandmother, right? I had the same thing with each of those 3 generations of women, to say there's nothing more important than you, and you are precious to us. And having that sense of nurture was incredibly important, and I can see how it would impact someone for the positive if they are able to experience that early in life.
I think that for me, I have a daughter, and as we talked about, we see things through our own lens. And if you talk to me, I was a very nurturing mother. if you talk to my daughter, she'll say that I provided, but when it came to fun activities, then other people took her on those things. And I say that because it's all about perspective. For me, I started off by saying who I am. I was a single mother. And so that meant that everything that happened, I had to do it. And so there were times when my sister or her godmother Lisa would come over on the weekend and they take her to do entertaining things, and it gave me a break just to breathe. But from her perspective, I didn't have time to be bothered with her. And so no matter how good you think you are doing from somebody, when you look at it from somebody else's perspective, it might not be as good, because for them, it's like, you didn't take that time to come to this amusement park with me. And from my perspective, it was like, I just needed a break. And so it's so important because, kids, they model what you do and not what you say. You can talk all day long, but they're looking at you and they're picking up all this stuff. Am I enough? If you believe that you're enough, then they believe they're enough. And so these things are so important because our daughters are about to, at some point, hopefully bring in human beings to the world. And I think it's just important that we understand the bigger scope of it, that, how we instill in what we instill in them, what they believe about themselves are going to impact the next generation.
Well, it's interesting in looking at my daughter and her mom and their relationship. Right now, they're not on speaking terms because of things that my daughter perceives that her mom did or didn't do. But I was a witness to what happened, and seeing the same set of facts through interpreted differently from them. I can see where that disconnects can happen and have a negative impact on a mother-daughter relationship.
When my mom would get on my nerves and I would argue with her, this was after my father passed, she would get frustrated and then just say, keep on living. Keep on living. And and I think about that, in both of your cases, but Ella, especially with you and what you've done, there have been so many. If I called you every time over the past few decades where I thought, how the hell did Ella raise a child by herself? Mm-hmm. Your phone would be ringing a lot because I think some people could take for granted how hard it is to do everything you said. And if you didn't get a chance to take them to Disneyland, it's like, really, is that your litmus test for whether you learned lessons in life from your mother? I mean, sure, there could be things where maybe you could have been more sensitive or whatever, but you were out trying to kill something and drag it back because you didn't have a safety net. So if you have to move to a bad part of town, she's moving with you. So you need to stop yik-yakking and respect your mom, to be honest.
I'm just stuck on the argue with your mom. I think I could get 3 words in before the backhand came. You said you're arguing with your mom. But
end of story, end of discussion.
End of discussion.
When I kind of look back on my mother, I think that people do the best that they can where they are. And so that's where the grace comes in. That's where the empathy, but you got to get there. And like you said, Ron, you just got to keep on living. And you just have to do, because no matter what, as a child, you feel like you were deprived of, I think my parents gave me the best that they could have, the best they had, whether it was good, bad, or indifferent. They were raising 4 kids and they did the best that they had. And I know that they did good by me. And so, I just think it's important because there are things, at the end of the day, we all have to be the best that we can be. And we have to instill this in our children. And I just want everybody out there to know that you matter, that you're enough, and you can do it. And those are the things that are going to move us forward as we talk about all this chaos that's going on in the world. I think that a lot of it has to do with people don't think that they're enough, and they're bullied. Like when you're enough, you don't subscribe to a bully. You don't allow a bully to bully you. And but that's where the love and the empathy for us, when we talk about what we need to do to move our community, our world forward, it's to eliminate the hate and start focusing on the love, and getting people to believe that you can do this, that you're enough.
Yeah.
And so that's, that just resonates with me, because if I wanted to say why I'm here, it's all about us moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. I tell you, my mantra, one of my mantras, but it's a main one, is that there are no perfect solutions in life, only imperfect options. Right. And so what's behind that is that I believe that part of maturing and being an adult is becoming mindful enough to know exactly what you said, that people do the best that they can when it comes to your parents. I don't care what household you grew up in. I don't care how much money or how much poverty you had. Your parents were limited by what they knew to do. And sometimes they got it right and sometimes they got it wrong. And what we have to teach, what we have to learn, starting with ourselves and then to our children and so forth, is that we have to get over all of that. All of that is the story. Everything that happened to us is a story, and now we have a choice. Now we have a choice as to how we are to live. Are we limited by that? Are we to use that as information or as fuel or however you want to do it to move your life forward? Because if you choose to do that, you can live a whole and complete life. And also, to your point, Ella, is to forgive oneself. Like, let's say, for example, I don't have natural born children, right? I have a stepson, and who was basically grown when I came into his life. But I imagine if I did, and I know that this is something that my father probably did at some point in his life, is he said to himself, "Hey, listen, I'm not you. You don't have to compare me, don't compare me to the Almighty. Compare me to the alternative." Right? You've heard that's something that Joe Biden has said before too, right? So I forgive myself for not knowing everything, for not doing everything right, for no whatever. I say that in my marriage. Like, you know what? I'm not going to get it right every time. I'm not going to do everything exactly the way you think I should. It's your choice as to whether more often than not I tried to do well by you or I didn't. And if you feel like I'm trying to do well by you, then you need to learn to now take the basis that I've given you and go and excel, right? Because now it's on you. It's no longer on me. Ella, you in your relationship with your own mother, whatever, if you lived your life saying, well, my mother didn't give me this, and so I'm not going to be like, you would have never done anything, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what I think more than anything, that's what we have to teach our children, the ones that are coming under us, is that you've got choices. I don't care how much advantage you had or disadvantage you have. Now that you're aware, you have a choice. So what are you going to do?
I don't know.
It's funny. I just want to say, like, my daughter, she'll like start complaining about a family member. And I just say, well, imagine if that was your mother. Because, it's always, just imagine if that was your mother, how life would be. So I just had to throw that out there.
Well, with my sisters and even with my daughter, I do struggle a bit when people are dealing with childhood stuff, because you can't do anything about it. You don't have a time machine. What has happened has already happened, and it's your response to it. And what my mom used to tell my sisters was like, I'll take full responsibility for the first 18 years, and when they turned 36, she said, well, what have you done with your 18? And so,
right.
And I get, pain is pain, frustrate, whatever they're feeling is real for them. I just struggle with it because there's nothing that you can do about it. You can go to therapy and learn how to process, but the reality of what happened in your childhood is past history. There's nothing you can do from it other than learn from it and respond moving forward. And to be stuck in that space and not deal with what's going on in your own life and blame it back onto something that happened when you were 8, I think that hurts you as a human being, and I struggle with that. I'm not a robot like Ron sometimes seems to think, but I recognize that what happened in my past happened, and that's not today.
Yeah. And so I've seen this play out within our family where there are men making decisions in life in their 70s, and when called out on it, it's like, well, it all goes back to the childhood. It's like, bruh, that was over 50 years ago. You have agency over your life. You cannot go back at 50, 60, 70 years old talking about, well, when I was 15 and 16, my father wouldn't let me do this. It's like, okay, if it is moved from the subconscious to the conscious, you have the ability to change the narrative because you're already aware of what happened. So now you can just say, I'm not going to repeat that pattern. And people will blame, like you said, the first 18 years. It's like, okay, got it. Okay. We didn't have much my first 18 years. Okay. But I'm not going to stay with a poverty mentality. I can choose how to live from 18 to now. I can't go blame mom and dad for buying Christmas presents at CVS. That's all we had. So it is what it is. CVS and Sears. Okay. They love me, but the blaming your parents for stuff, unless it was like something like incest or physical violence, it's like, okay, if it's risen to the level of you are aware of it, you can make a decision on how to course correct so you don't have to repeat that.
I don't know if that's always the case either, because we all have different strengths. There are some people who just emotionally, mentally, they just can't do that. They can't get past it. So I leave space for people who,
What's a good example?
well,
I'm sorry.
Someone who may be really, really, really sensitive and empathetic, who didn't get love and affection, that could hurt them so deeply that they can't get past that. So I can leave space for people like that who are injured just because of how they're wired. I'm not wired that way. I've always been wired differently, where I can compartmentalize my feelings, and I can just deal with the whatever it is and just focus in. Everybody doesn't have that, so I can leave space for that. What I'm talking about is when you are hearkening back to a decision that you made today based on something that happened many, many, many years ago, without saying that you're a part of it. You may say that my mother didn't hug me enough, so therefore I date men who are mama's boys or what have you. That can be something that you can work toward, but there are some people who just the emotional trauma was just too much for them, just because of who they are and how they're wired. So I can leave space for that as well.
All right.
But I think that people are wounded, and they talk about people being frozen with whatever that pain was. And, you have to go through the process of unthawing, of dealing with it. And you kind of minimized it from my perspective, Darren, like therapy and stuff. But those are the things that allow you to pull back the layers and unthaw so that you're able to move on. Because when you don't, you just mask it. It's there, but you never dealt with it. And I think that that's the important thing, that we need to start pulling back those layers. We need to unthaw all the pain that was there so we can move forward, to understand that people did the best that they could, and you forgive them and you move on. But you can't move on if you don't recognize what the issue is and deal with it.
And I don't minimize therapy. I apologize if I did. I think therapy is extraordinarily important if you have a good therapist. There's some terrible therapists out there that keep you wallowing in the thing that you're wallowing in because that's how they get paid. But I think a good therapist can definitely help you peel back the onion of some of that. So if it came off that way, I am a huge advocate of therapy. I've never been, but I'm a huge advocate.
Yeah.
Well,
I think there's power in awareness, right? So the more you can surface the information, the whatever it is, whether you're right about it or you're wrong about it or somewhere in between, I think it's critical to then take choices as to how you're going to move forward. So Ella, I think that's a great a great topic you bring up. And I hope that I think that's a topic any one of us can resonate with, particularly as parents who are raising children, and if your children are now adults and you're having to deal with them on that level, and you're confronted with the past, their version of the past, and how that's affected them and affecting your relationship. I'm sure it resonates. So we'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences around that. So Ella, thank you for that topic. That's a great one. Why don't you take us out of here with your parting shot?
So my parting shot for today, and I just want to say thank you, because I was talking to my daughter yesterday and she triggered me, but now my responses to the triggers are different, because I just kind of took a deep breath and said, I explained, well, I did it this way because of this, instead of like being reactive and, kind of going off. So it's the growth there, but it's also that I think it's important that she understands what she said affects me, and then me being able to express how I felt about that. But so I want to leave with burn the boats. And so this is a historical term that basically came from, I don't know, different people say different things, but this was a Mexican war, Cortez in 17 something, where they came upon the island. I don't know who they were fighting, but at the end of the day, they debarked and they were about to move forward. And he told his team to burn the boats. And what that meant was that we don't have any other options. It's either we go and conquer, because we don't have a plan B. We can't go back to these boats, and we're not swimming across this ocean. Mm-hmm. And so I think that that's important, because I know I don't know if you ever remember this, Nick, I was talking about before I start doing general contracting full time. You said something to me about, what if you just put 100% in it? You what you get back is how much you put into it. And I never ever forgot that. It's like, in my world right now, I burnt the boats that were behind me. All I'm looking for is the future. I'm betting 100, and I'm betting 200% on me. Mm-hmm. And so, when you burn the boats and there is no option, then you just move forward. And you might, get knocked down, but you get back up and you just keep moving forward. So I want to leave you guys with that. Burn the goddamn boats, because you can do it. Mm-hmm. I believe in you. You are enough, and you matter. That's what I
want to put a cautionary note to the burning the boats. You can also die. Just saying.
But you know what?
No.
Burning the boats.
You're not all in. You're not all in.
All in. You can always die, but at least you did it for yourself.
That's right. So my story is in 1998, when the company moved me. They sent me a one-way ticket. Mm-hmm. And I looked at that one-way ticket. It wasn't a round trip. Mm-hmm. Sold the house, put the then 6-month-old baby in the car seat, and headed to the airport with a one-way ticket. There was no plan B.
Exactly.
I mean, to your point, Ella, it's like, we got to make this work, because we have left everything behind, and now we are off in this new journey. Mm-hmm. You got to burn the boats, 100%.
You got to burn the boats, baby.
Yep. Yeah. I think that the moral to that story is, like, better to bet on you than to bet on somebody else. All our discussions about agency and about choices and all that stuff is important, because at the end of the day, probably even if you bet on you and you go 100% in and it doesn't work out, there's going to be another option that comes up that will.
No, if you burn the boats, there's no other option.
I mean, this is not. We're not talking about war now. We're talking about life, and life isn't like trying to conquer a land, and you're either conqueror or killed, but. I think the point is well taken. And whether you're burn the boats, leave the boats, or somewhere in between, bet on yourself, right? Is that your point?
Yes, that's it. That's the point.
All right.
Hang on. We gotta let Darren get some runway to expose how his point of view. I'll put it.
Look, he's shaking. He can't take it.
I harken back to fall back to defensible position. That's what I thought. Like. Burning the boats is a good theoretical construct, but I need to have an escape plan because the old expression, he who lives and runs away lives to fight another day. I'm not trying to die on the battlefield. I'm trying to win. And I may take an L and then come back stronger.
You won't take an L or a W. You will be mired in mediocrity the rest of your life because you never took a chance. That's what burn the boats is. You have to take a chance, as Nick said. Believe in yourself, and you got to have a high beta coefficient. It's a finance term. If you just have this moderate, lukewarm, milquetoast view of the world, you might as well put your money in the savings account and just let it lose money. You got to take risks.
No, the burn the boats. It sounds because you're really not burning the boats.
Yeah,
right?
You are. You're going in 110%.
Bruh, one-way ticket.
Not everybody, because burning the boats for some people, they don't have family or friends or an infrastructure. They will end up homeless on the street. We don't necessarily, where we are, we have a support system in place. Like when Ella offered for you and Court to come stay with her, I'm sorry, and she offered you guys to come stay with her. It's not the same for everybody when you say burn the boats. I just caution you when you do have other options where some people don't. There's some people who don't have another way. So burning the boats for them is all in death. So I'm just putting up a caution there.
Most people in life are not faced with a do or die situation. It's
Exactly.
like go for it or don't. So we're not going to relitigate that one. We're running a little bit long on time.
As you have goals, as you're moving forward, then avenues open up, and you go this way, you can go that way, and so, but you had to burn what was behind you in order to move forward, and that's the point. So thank you for that.
Like the story in the Bible.
Right now, we're going to burn the boats and move forward.
Like the story in the Bible where they're leaving I forget what land it is, and the wife looks back and she turns into a pillar of salt.
Lot,
Lot and his wife, exactly. So anyway, we've really chewed this up, and we hopefully have inspired in you some thought about what your thoughts on this subject are, whether it's the mother-child connection or burning the boats. We'd love to get your thoughts and feedback. Ella, you've really given us a lot to chew on, so we thank you for that. And we are always inspired to learn more, so we hope that you that are watching feel the same. Please do leave a comment, like, and share, and we're going to check you guys out in the next one. Have a great week or day until the next time, and we've next time on We've Got Issues.
Bye.
See ya.
Yeah.
Burn those boats.